And I actually lived in Chicago for 5 years. I had moved out of New York City in 2011, right after graduating from college. And while there, I started dating this guy, this boyfriend. And I tried to bring this boyfriend home to my parents here in the Lower East Side in Chinatown. And my dad was like, no, I am not going to meet him. He cannot have dinner with us. And I knew, because my dad has never said I love you to me, that this was his way of saying this man is not welcome, because while my dad has never said I love you to me, he also always shoves food in my face to show that he loves me. The way Chinese people show I love you is through shoving food in their face. Like, you can see clips on YouTube of Chinese like children like saying I love you to their parents, and their parents having like a bewildered look. But you can see like a 12-course meal with like lobster and crab and broccoli and all the things possible, just how much your parents love you. And by my dad saying he is not invited for dinner, I knew that my Chicago-based boyfriend and I were not welcome. We were not loved. We were not welcome. And it felt like for a very long time that this was kind of like a conditional love. So I moved back to New York about 3 years ago, and I wanted to introduce my new boyfriend last Christmas. His name is Corey. And Corey had a few things going for him that my last boyfriend didn't. Corey is Chinese, but he is also fourth-generation Chinese. So I found the whitest Chinese guy I could possibly find, the most American Chinese guy I could find. He's an eighth white. Maybe if he was like a half white, maybe he wouldn't be welcome in my house. Who knows? He also grew up here in New York and is here in New York. So, I could bring him over. And so Corey and I are like wrangling like the Danish cookies and the oranges to bring over to my parents so he can impress them. And as soon as Corey comes upstairs, my parents do that like closed lip smile that's really awkward, and that way like, because they don't really know what to say. And Corey also not speaking Chinese and my parents not speaking English. Corey doesn't know what to say either. He kind of waves hello and kind of does like a head nod, which I interpret as a bow. We have discussed this and disagree on whether it was a bow or a head nod, to much consternation from both of us. And we start dinner. I also make sure my brothers are there, because at least if Corey can't speak to my parents in Chinese, at least my brothers and I and Corey can be there all together talking. And so the very first question, right, my parents only asked 3 questions the whole time during this dinner, this 2.5-hour dinner. And the first one was, 佢中文名係咩啊? What is his Chinese name? And I'm in my head freaking out. I have not prepped Corey for this question. And I'm looking at Corey like desperate, like, do you know it? Do you know it? And Corey, like, he sadly like puts his head down and whispers, Chicotle. He knew his Chinese name, and we passed that hurdle. 20 minutes later, as Corey is shoveling food with his left hand, because he's left-handed, with chopsticks onto his plate, my dad just goes, "你要唔要個叉? Do you need a fork?" And as soon as I translate that to Corey, Corey furiously shakes his head, no, and defiantly starts to shovel even more food with his chopsticks onto his plate, right? And my mom like nods approvingly and is like, 佢係咁做就係okay啊. He just does it this way. It's fine. It's fine. And maybe like an hour like later, right? He's continuing to do that, and he holds his own with his chopsticks. Good work, Corey. And maybe an hour later, my parents ask, 佢去邊間學校啊? Where did he go to school? And I say Dartmouth. And my parents look puzzled. And I go in my maybe Chinglish, like maybe they'll understand in Chinglish, Dartmouth? And my parents still look confused. And I was like, it's like those really good Ivy League schools, right? Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Columbia. And my parents sort of understand and they sort of nod. And then as we end this dinner, my dad also uses his own Chinglish to speak to Corey and says, "See you later." And Corey, hopefully he didn't do his awkward head nod bow again, and we walk out together, and I walk with Corey, and Corey goes, "Annie, they only asked me 3 questions. How Asian are you? How Asian are you? How Asian are you?" Now, if you are not sure, how many people in this room are Asian? Like, just by clapping. We have a good amount, right? I think every one of us knows what the Asian test is. It is a test of our family's expectations of whether you are up to snuff. Did you get the good grades? Did you go to the good college? Did you get the good job? And as a teacher myself, right, who does speak Cantonese, who went to Hong Kong, right, who uses chopsticks masterfully, I have been trying to pass this Asian test for years. And, arguably, I went to Columbia, I should say. So I pass all these tests, but it's never enough. It's never enough. And it made me really sad. That's all they asked of Corey the first time they met him. And they thought the same thing maybe about my last boyfriend, my last ex. And just because he wasn't Asian, maybe that's why they would never accept him. And that got me really sad, that my parents might not allow me to date someone who was not Chinese. And I do wonder sometimes whether I picked Corey because he is Chinese. And that's just a real thing I have to think about. But over the next few months, we start having dinners together, and Corey comes with me alone to my parents' place. And my parents, we have dinners, and my dad, maybe 2 months ago, says, finally, they say, "Whenever you want, please come back for dinner." And I ask, "When do you want us back?" And my dad goes, No, Annie, not you. Corey can come by himself. We can have dinner with Corey alone. He can come whenever he wants. How would that work? He doesn't speak Chinese and they don't speak English. It'd be like my dad saying, in his very Chinglish, "Thank you very much, see you later," the whole conversation. Whereas Corey's just awkwardly eating, right? I told my coworkers this, and my coworkers are like, "You have to let him go by himself. They want to ask him to propose to you. You have to have the cute Asian babies. They have a plan." And I asked Corey, "Do you feel comfortable going by yourself to my parents' place?" And Corey shakes his head, "No, that's weird." It's weird. And I don't think it's a commitment thing. You can ask him yourself. He's right there. But it's more of a, hey, they don't speak the same language. And that's when I realized my last boyfriend also didn't speak the same language. My last boyfriend also would have ate everything my parents fed him. But we were in Chicago then, and Corey's here in New York. And all my parents wanted to do was shove food in his face. They wanted to show their love through shoving food in her face. Just like they do for me. They get mad at me. If they're mad at me, they only have a plate full of leftovers. But when Corey comes over, it's at least a 4 to 6 course meal because they gotta look good, So in the past few weeks, my dad has been mad at me. And so sometimes I'll just be like, "Hey, Corey, you want to go over and get leftovers for me so I can know my parents love me still?" So thank you very much.